Good morning, all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which place of the world you are. Welcome to this working session. And I'm very happy to host this session and moderate this session with four of my esteemed colleagues. This session, we are going to talk about building the resilience of MSMEs through the use of fintech. We all know when the pandemic hit, the quarantined economy had only one silver lining, and that was the fintech. And fintech responded very well to help the economy come out of the challenges and address the challenges in the way we would like it to be. And in a country like India, where I come from and our organization comes from, one of the game changer has been fintech. And we have seen the role of fintech in creating the resilience in MSMEs. A lot of MSMEs actually migrated onto fintech platform. And with me today are four experts who have helped MSMEs, who have hands-on experience with MSMEs in putting them on the fintech bandwagon. So very happy to have these esteemed guests with me. So to introduce my guest, let me take this opportunity to introduce four of our panelists. We have JP with us. JP is a veteran in the financial sector. Finance and risk management professional with more than 18 years of experience. He has worked with the leadership positions in BDO Global in India as well as in UK. And JP was the youngest professional to be promoted as partner in his firm in India. He has delivered several engagements involving formulating and implementing India-focused business strategies and cross-border transactions, cumulative worth of US dollars 2 billion. Seriously experienced person and a hands-on experience with a lot of fintech companies. So very happy to have JP with us. Then we have Shri Nilesh Trivedi ji with us. Mr. Trivedi has more than 25 years of experience and has worked with reputed organizations like Ranbaxy, Nicholas Piramal, Asian Paints and all. And presently, he's with he's assistant director with the Department of MSMEs, Government of India, and has played phenomenal role in helping MSMEs in the RegTech segment, where the Government of India has actually brought in a lot of innovations, and through his ministry, he has introduced these innovations for MSMEs to make the regulatory cost go down and be more responsive to the regulation. So we'll hear that about all that from Trivedi ji. Then we have Ambar with us. Ambar, a very close friend of mine, and a seasoned entrepreneur, corporate trainer with proven track record in training. And he has done notable work with large multinationals as well as in MSMEs. At this time, he's a mentor to a lot of MSMEs and helping MSMEs become profitable entities. So nobody better than Ambar can actually tell us how MSMEs look at fintech from an insider's perspective, and what are the opportunities that fintech has brought to MSMEs. And finally, last but not the least, another friend of mine, very good friend of mine, Vini Maheshwari, who is a fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He's a graduate in law and commerce. He has done his postgraduate diploma in business management and a licentiate of Insurance Institute of India. Vineet has worked with multinational groups like Cummins, Honeywell, and Volkswagen for more than 15 years, handling issues related to finance, treasury, secretarial, risk management, compliances, and whole aspects of financial management. Since 2017, Vineet has been working as a business consultant and has been providing business support and advisory services to provide end-to-end business solutions especially for MSMEs. And his special focus on MSMEs and his role as virtual CFOs of several MSMEs also enable us to see an insight into the financial, management and the financial sector, benefits that fintech have brought to MSMEs. So with that, I invite my first panelist, Jaiprakash Rajingam, as we fondly call him, JP, for his words. Over to you, JP.
Thank you so much, Bharat, and it's a pleasure to be on this forum, and I truly appreciate and respect Indo Global SME Chambers to have invited me to share my thoughts. Good day to everyone, all participants everywhere across the world, and it's such a lovely forum to be able to share experiences and gain out of the same. Given my co-panelists, I kind of wonder what is a specific conversation that I could have, which could be so different or set the tone. So what I'm trying to visualize is, given the nature of participants here, I'm breaking the conversations to three large pieces. One from an academic researcher's perspective, the other is from the business perspective as to fintech itself, how it could contribute to resilience, and the last is from a regulatory angle. So I'm trying to leave three large pieces of thoughts in the course of my initial opening conversation. But at the center of all of this, if you ask me, is the genesis of all of this starts from the mother nature, which offers us bounty, and in her own beauty, the bounty is not evenly distributed across. So which creates the whole requirement to trade, and which is what the Forum World Trade WTO is all about. If you look at this contextually and then try and expand, the whole idea would be, how would you use trade to equalize and ensure inclusiveness, which is the whole idea of WTO. And that's where the larger conversation or piece happens. And when we examine this from the prism of the philosophy from the part of the world where I belong to, which is India, it is the finally whole core objectives reduced into four aims or four objectives, which is also called Purusharths in the Sanatana Dharma context, which is Dharma, righteous action; Artha, which is economic activity in the context of in a sustained manner; Kama, which is desire, so fulfillment of desire; and last is Moksha, which is liberation in the general context. But if I try and commercially put a context to it, moksha would also mean the ability for all our cohabitants of this earth to be living with dignity, peaceful manner, and without discord, which is what most of the multilateral agencies are targeting. So if we try and then look at the fulcrum, which is Artha and Kama, the desire and the economic activity is what is being used to channelize bounty of nature. There are a couple of models which have been experimented over the years. So we have the free market economy, which in the mid 20th century was very well evaluated and put to use by the Western Hemisphere. We had the command control model, which evolved from Russia onwards now, which we see as China as a great example, which has put that to use for the purposes of the human objective of economic trade as well as consumption, or meeting desires. But when you look at all of this today as researchers, which is my first segment, the first set of audiences whom I would want to leave my message with, is when you examine both these structures of free market economy or command structure, it is today somehow finally resulting into a lot of conversations around it being unsustainable. Inequality surely up there in most of the conversations in any forum where social awareness is there. And finally, if I'm another, dignity from dignity also becomes a question, because that's what leads to discord in most of the conversations. A lot of these disparities, these contexts, these conflicts, contrasts between various models have been very nicely articulated by Dr. Subramaniam Swamy in his book in 2019, Reset. And I am not sure whether it was somehow timing was right that the book got released and COVID did come in, and it did further accentuate the issues around these two larger economic models, which brings us to the conversation here. So if you look at both these models, they were largely prone to facilitating larger organizations or skewed towards scale and size in a given context. But you start examining, which is where SMEs come into play, or MSME comes into play. That for any economy which needs to grow, which needs to sustain, which needs to be inclusive, MSMEs have to thrive. There's a very limited example of German Mittelstand, which we can allude to or learn from, where because the whole German economy got its strength from its Mittelstand, which was largely MSME family-owned businesses, which contributed to the strength. So the same model, I can surely say, can be replicated in the larger context, and which is where MSME becomes very critical to ensure objectives of organizations like WTO and other multilateral agencies to expand. And which is where I believe Bharat's organization, and where I believe the contribution is that we could focus a lot on how MSMEs per se are tools to achieve the end objective. Here comes the intersection of fintech, and which is what I would look at. So most of the researchers I would articulate is, when we look at MSMEs, when you look at policies, when you look at achievement of goals, are MSME central to the same? Else, in the longer horizon, it will result into discord, inequality. Is a thesis, is a thought that I'm putting forth for my research compatriots in this forum and otherwise in the world to try and examine. Having said that, if I now move to the second segment around MSMEs and fintech convergence, which is business context, there are multiple conversations in various forums which talks about outreach into marketplace, access to marketplace, transparency, compliance, regulation. There's so many different conversations. I did love Bharat's alluded to RegTech, which is regulated technologies. So there are multiple such conversations, but from a purely finance angle, I would love if the whole concept of financial spreads are addressed by fintech and nothing else. So if I have to devote a lot of time, my own time, to research and my own energies, I would end up surely investing a lot of time in what I say spread reduction. Spread, essentially, very quickly, to try and bring it to context, is nothing but the cost of a borrowing for any, or cost of mobilizing funds which bankers generally have to incur, to the cost which they are going to charge finally the ultimate borrower. In India, for example, the spreads can be high as about 15%, 150 basis points, 1500 basis points. So that's a huge cost for an MSME, and that is where largely such huge cost comes from two major elements. One is the lack of data, which thereby the credit worthiness of the MSME is very difficult to evaluate. So thereby there is an omnibus credit risk spread which is added. And the other is operating cost, which is for simply reaching out to various MSMEs. It becomes very expensive. You have to have branches, you have to have people, you have to have regular monitoring, so on and so forth. It makes it very expensive. A combination of these two results into such large spreads, which makes borrowing very expensive, and thereby sustainability of MSMEs become questions. And here is what fintech can play a major role. The ability to be able to organize data, collate data, try and work around this data to come up with analytics which makes easier credit delivery, easier credit risk assessment, is what will finally be the proof, or which is what fintech will clearly deliver to the society and marketplace. If I have to quote a number here contextually, the whole Indian banking sector size about $2.5 trillion US. A 1% reduction in spread would result to something like $25 billion saving. Now, this saving can be split in whichever manner where MSMEs themselves gain because their cost reduces, or a portion of that is taken away by the fintech as their revenues and their profits. So the potential is very substantive, and I'm not talking about 1%. And a very back of the envelope calculation gives me a feeling that at least about 4 to 5% spread reduction can happen. Which is today, if in India per se, again, that's where the country I come from, general MSME borrower would pay anywhere between 18 to 22% on a borrowing. And this could easily come into the early teens as far as interest rates are concerned. So that if you ask me, fintech, if it devotes a lot of time into this specific segment and shrink the spread, that's one message that I would surely want to leave for fintech companies to look at. Rather than, which is the other element which I'm seeing a lot of while yes, fintech did a lot of good work on payment aggregation side and helped in during COVID times for companies to MSMEs to survive, no two ways, but there is a natural draw or affinity now towards becoming bankers themselves. And here I quote Mr. Ravi Shankar, who is a deputy governor of RBI, did surely mention and did surely say that fintech should act like conduit for financial institutions to do their service rather than compete. And that is where a lot of froth is emanating, a lot of confusions are in marketplace, and which is where I get to the next. So my submission to fintech would be try and work as much as possible to reduce the spread. There are multiple ways, ideas, and technology guys are great in doing it. But that brings me to the third piece of regulation. As to on the regulation side, what would I really look at? And I would clearly look at, again, the same thing, the clarity around credit risks and how they are So in India, for example, there was a lot of initiatives taken. Initially, there was complete lack of transparency on how floating rates were indeed quoted by bankers. And there is no way that it could be easily visualized. So there are some changes that have happened, but it's still not there. If that transparency is indeed resulting from regulatory changes, regulator working more proactively, I guess a lot of benefits will go to MSME, and that's something which surely government should look at tightening their own thoughts on. The other point also is a lot of emphasis today is around consumption, which is the third Purushartha which I mentioned about Kama. And RBI surely in India and through various arguments is indeed mentioning that it is trying to see how regulation can play a role of one or other way controlling such consumptions. The idea is not to try and dampen the economy, but to surely regulate it better. And that's something which I would surely say everyone in the globe would say. A lot of there should be consumption ideally, yes, it's good, but a lot of money being channelized to unbridled consumption would result into a lot of problems. We are seeing that in China for sure. We have seen that in US in the past, where the sub-mortgage plan came and so on and so forth. So nutshell, to sum up the conversation, what I would say is three large messages is fintech should be conduits, not competing with financial institutions. And that's the whole idea of strategy with which they should work. They should work on, fintech should focus on delivery and efficiency, reducing cost of processes rather than trying to become the process or become the bankers themselves. We have already learned from microfinance companies that didn't work. And lastly, it should still, the froth continue. Fintech should be mindful that King Midas story is always there. If you try and want to make gold out of everything that you touch, if technology touches everything, it becomes gold. It annihilates the King Midas himself. So technology itself could, and fintech companies could annihilate themselves. So that's my larger submission. Thank you, Bharat, for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to hearing my co-panelists.
Thank you, JP, and insightful as always. I always love to hear to you because there's so much of things to learn out of the perspectives that you bring in. Thank you, JP, for that. One of the key areas of fintech has been the regtech, as I said, and Government of India has been doing phenomenal work in making the regulatory compliances and access to regulatory services much easy through online mechanism, through the introduction of technology, and a lot of MSMEs have benefited out of it. So what the government has done has actually been one of the key pillars of role of fintech in the Indian MSME sector. And for that, I invite Shri Nilesh Trivedi ji, Assistant Director, MSME, Government of India, to share his perspective on how the Government of India is committed to bring those regulatory convenience through the use of technology. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bharat. I am audible to?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you. Government of India, Ministry of MSME has done many initiatives for smoothening of the business processes. Recently, Government of India, my department, Ministry of MSME, has launched a portal, mymsme.gov.in. Under this portal, one can take one can take training, procurement and marketing support. We have 25% public procurement policy in which any MSEs can supply 25% of their produce to government organizations. And out of these 25%, there is reservation for women entrepreneurs. And all procurement has been done by government through GAM portal, Government e-Marketplace. And we have some marketing supports like participation in domestic exhibitions. This whole system is online. Any micro, small entrepreneur can participate twice in a year in any domestic exhibitions, and we will provide reimbursement around 1.5 lakhs in metro cities, and like Indore, Bhopal city, we will reimburse around 1 lakh and 80,000 for very small C class cities. Apart from domestic exhibition, we also support international cooperation scheme under which we will support micro, small, medium enterprise, whether in manufacturing sector or in service sector. The subsidy of rupees 5 lakhs towards stall charges, airfare and freight. And these both all processes are online. And recently on 22nd September 2021, a very good portal launched by Government of India. That the name of the portal is NSWS, National Single Window System, in which 19 central government departments and 9 state governments are on the board. So various statutory clearances, various regulatory clearances like registrations. Registration is a very big concern for Government of India, Ministry of MSME. As presently 6 crore 34 lakh MSME units are functioning. But out of these 6.34 crore MSME, only 15 to 20% are registered. Though we made registration online through our Udyam registration portal, it is a free of cost portal. Anyone, whether it is in manufacturing sector or in service sector, they can themselves registered with the help of this Udyam registration portal, and it is just a 15 minutes time one can register themselves, and then only they are entitled for central government concessions, subsidies, facilities, and state government concessions and facilities. Then we have developed a MSME Samadhan portal. Then MSME Samadhan portal is a very important portal, as we have seen that MSE supplier supplies his goods to large scale entities are in government departments, but they are unable to get timely payment. This MSME Samadhan portal ensure that these large scale entrepreneurs provide the amount and reimburse and pass the bill. So this is a very good portal, MSME Samadhan. The problem of delayed payment is also solved. And one of another portal is trades related electronic discounting system, trades. This is very important. In this type of trades portal, no need of this MSME Samadhan portal. MSME supply his products to any corporates or any entities and get their payment from their financiers. So these all are online system, and this is very good for MSME, but awareness is a big problem. And there are many self-employment schemes which is run online by Government of India. First of our kind is Prime Minister Employment Generation Program, PMEG. Under this scheme, 25 lakh rupees has been disbursed as a loan, and in which subsidies ranging from 15% to 35%. And it is depends upon the gender and the locality where the enterprise is set. And for innovation purpose, as India has jumped from 82 to 48 position in terms of Global Innovation Index released by WIPO, because our innovation are very good, and Government of India, Ministry of MSME has a scheme, business incubation scheme. Under this scheme, we have given around 15 lakhs to Incubity to convert their idea to prototype or project. And recently, Ministry of Commerce and Industry has also launched Startup India Seed Fund scheme. Under this scheme, 50 lakhs from idea to product. So these all are very important, and post-COVID, government has issued around 4.5 lakh crore emergency credit line guarantee scheme. This is very good for the MSMEs who are suffering due to lack of proper money and working capital problems. And as on date, around 2.89 lakh crore has already been disbursed to MSMEs and business entities. So these all things are online, and all incentives related to either export or state government or central government are online. No, it is not necessary that you go to or visit to any office. And if you have any problem related to your MSME, you simply write down a mail to champions@gov.in. This portal and this champions@gov.in solve many problems for many MSMEs who are unable to coordinate with state government, excise, central excise, custom departments. So this champion portal is very important for MSMEs. If you have any problem, you want some support from government, you simply write that champions. And we will support. I mean, our ministry has developed this champion control room. And if his problem is related with customs, then we will forward your grievance to customs, our banks, our state governments. So these all are online initiatives and financial technology help. And soon we will proceed more. And many self-employment schemes are online through our Udyami Mitra portal, under which Prime Minister Mudra Yojana, Prime Minister Swanidhi Yojana, Stand Up India, Startup India, CGT MSE. If any MSME want loan, then he or she should not submit any collateral because of our CGT MSE scheme. So these all initiatives will help MSMEs and will be more dynamic and vibrant, as MSMEs contribute to India's GDP is around 31% and 6.1% contribution from manufacturing MSMEs, and around 48% contribution in export by these our MSMEs. Though they have suffered lack of problem of documentation and technology, but if we support MSMEs, then 100% we will get our $1 trillion export target set up by Government of India by 2025. And around 5 trillion economy India want to be in the next 25. And PLI scheme, production linked incentive scheme, is very good scheme. Under this scheme, India definitely will be number 2 or number 3 economy in terms of electronics, automobiles, and pharmaceuticals, because we are very lacking of these bulk drug parks and pharmaceutical parks. So the Government of India, Ministry of MSME, Commerce Ministry, state government, these all should unite. And most important, that our industry associations and our academic institutions should be in fusion mode, so that we can use our youth power. And for youth power, we have many other self-employment schemes are also working by some state government and some central government. And that startup innovation startup scheme is also very good, and many persons getting benefits from this Startup India scheme, in which labor related or environmental related clearances are on the basis of self-certification, exemption from payment of capital gain tax, exemption from payment of income tax, venture capital fund can easily invest. And most important, last one is intellectual property right. Government of India has approved the intellectual property right policy on 12th May 2016. And all because of this approval of this policy, now 4 times jump in the grant of patent, trademark, copyright, and design and GI registrations. Because Government of India has changed many things, that online submissions, 10% rebate in fees of patent and trademark, 50% fees exemptions for startups, and he recruited many officers, and whole process online, and even hearings are also through video conferencing mode. So our grant of patent, design, trademark, copyright has increased many folds because of these financial technologies. So this is my submission, and any question we will take later on.
Thank you. Thank you, Trivedi ji, for that wonderful explanation on how the Government of India is using fintech and regtech and technology to actually enable MSMEs become more and more prominent players in the economy. Just to put things in perspective, when Mr. Trivedi said that we have about 7.5 crores, that means about 70 million MSME units in India in million terms. That's a huge number. When we talk about the scheme, the loan scheme that he spoke about, I think if you actually put it in perspective, Say if we say that's about 600 million, sorry, $6 billion worth scheme. So it's a huge amount of money that the government of India is pushing into the system. And now with, I remember there was time when MSME unit, before it starts, it would take away the energy of the entrepreneur, because he has to visit at least 50 different offices with his files, and each office, and then from office to office. And today he doesn't have to even visit 50 websites. He has to just shoot an email, and the issues are solved. So that's something which we have come a great distance. And I think we appreciate the way the government of India is actually putting all these things. But from a MSME's perspective, now with the larger perspective, with the government's perspective, I think it's very important to hear about how MSMEs is looking at all these aspects. And that is where I think nobody better than Amber I could think of. And Amber has been, say, into the MSME sector, helping MSMEs achieve from becoming good to great. And somebody who has always, say, thrived on innovation, who has always been one of the wonderful orators I have heard. So Amber, say, over to you. Welcome to this platform, Amber.
Dr. Bharat, first of all, thank you so much for granting me this amazing opportunity of being part of this August gathering at the WTO. And listening to the eminent panelists before me, I have a different perspective of the story, as you said. Let me first of all, tell you that like our friend, the gentleman who spoke first, I also have got, majoritarily I've classified my talk into three segregated sections. The first one is, let us understand what exactly the SMEs underwent during the pandemic period. Because if we understand what actually they have gone through, then probably we would be able to understand that how Fintech came to rescue and how effective was all this. So the most important thing that I've seen the SMEs undergo, the biggest problem, their order to the collection cycle got hit. That was the most massive hit that they took. The orders had been supplied, the sale possible. So their customers, the people who bought from SMEs, their payments did not come. A lot of these SMEs were actually working in beyond regional boundaries. So because the transportation was closed down, and the banks were also closed down for a good amount of time. So their order to collection cycle took a major. That was the first thing. Second thing, because of this, because lack of collections, the inventory cycle also resulted into late payment to the creditors, because there was no inflow of cash, and that's the reason why the SMEs were not able to pay their creditors as well, because of which the shortage of raw materials started happening, and the entire working capital cash flows were blocked, because of which to a great extent the whole thing kind of built an inward spiral. One thing started impacting the other, and everything kind of way, in a way came to a standstill. Now, when the businesses came to standstill, I think the help was required. Fintech definitely came to rescue. But before I talk about how did come to rescue, and how did SMEs respond, or how do they see it? First of all, let me honestly tell you, whenever you talk about help being extended to somebody, the first and foremost important thing is, what is the exact kind of help anyone willing to extend? Number one. Number two, how timely can the help reach the needy people? Non-government institutions, everybody was wanting to help the SME sector. The question is, how timely did the help reach these people? Number three, I appreciate that there are people who are willing to help, but is the seeker of the help, or is the person who is going to be beneficiary of the help, is he aware of it? I mean, it is like saying that, there is somebody willing to give you something, but the takers are unaware. And if we say that the takers are unaware, and this unawareness is to be blamed to them, I have a different perspective on which I really believe that these fixed startups, or the tech, or maybe the government, establishments, it's great to have schemes in place, but at the same point in time, what we need to, ensure is that is end user available of it? Is the end user aware of it? If the end user is not aware of it, then a lot of our schemes or a lot of the help which the fintech companies intended, they did not reach to the every possible corner or to the possible remotest possible MSME. So my question here is, or my submission here is, my friends, when I talk about SMEs of the urban sector, yes, the people who are a lot informed, a lot educated, for them this all help really proved pivotal. But at the same point in time, a lot of our economy happens to be a rural economy, and with Atmanirbhar Bharat, so all these self-employment schemes like Stand Up India, Startup India, and all, a lot of people are looking at the self-employment generation at their own remote rural areas, where to a great extent internet still remains to be a problem. So how do I, how do I see this is that are the service providers really aware of the fact to reach out the rural sector? But everything having said that, how do I see the MSME getting benefited is the fintech help in terms of bill discounting or the transfer of funds, peer-to-peer transfer. It really came to a major rescue, because the moment the working capital cycle was blocked, if the MSME had supplied to any established buyer, a lot of MSMEs in India are the suppliers to the OEM manufacturers, and OEM manufacturers are people who have a very strong credit history. Their trustworthiness among the bill discounters is very strong. So while we do bill discounting, the the credibility is not important of the MSME, but when the MSMEs were supplying to some established buyers, the bill discounting definitely was raised, the order was supplied, they could get their bill discounted, and because of it, their cash was addressed to a great extent. Now, beyond that, as I said, the peer-to-peer transfer funds, and in case of some real small people, when we talk about the MSME, I think a lot of us look at some people who kind of run one or the other industry. But let me tell you, Dr. Bharat and my fellow eminent panelists, Government of India started one scheme that Mr. Chaudhary also recently cited about, the PM Swanidhi Yojana. Now, I want to tell you that more than 27 lakh people, they were benefited out of this scheme, and the loan that they received was a very small ticket size loan of around 10,000 rupees. But even with a small loan like 10,000 rupees of ticket, 1,698 crore rupees. Now, look at this. Whatever whatever schemes that you otherwise talk from the banks and otherwise talk from a lot of other financial assistance providers, anybody who is desirous of taking a loan as low ticket as 10,000, probably these are the people for whom the traditional funding alternatives did not really make much of any papers to support their granting these loans. And this was a pretty quick fire process. Out of some 45 lakh applicants, almost 27 lakh people got it. Now this itself tells you that despite of the fact that government is willing to do a lot for these MSMEs or the so-called the entrepreneurs of the unorganized sector, it still remains the fintech companies or government still needs to find out business. Trust me, if you look at a vendor who sells something like a vegetable or fruits, his margins are to the tune of 150 to 200% per day. Problem is, his requirement is very small. If he keeps on getting these funds, he can actually churn them every day. So these are some of the most profitable ventures. The only thing is somehow we are not in a position to notice them. Now, if there is a particular person who sells those vegetables on the pull carts, I don't know, in our list of MSMEs, does he qualify to be, an MSME? But he for sure is an entrepreneur. He for sure is doing business, and he was one of the most worstly hit people in this pandemic situation. How do I see it as is that what MSMEs expect from these fintech organizations, fintech startups, or we see to it that how the inclusion percentage can be enhanced. There were a lot of other interesting startups also. Typically, when you talk about these days, there are a lot of investors are on a lookout for an investment opportunity, because startups are one of the most exciting investment opportunities, even for the investors. Fintech companies with their intuitive tools and their predictive algorithms, I'm sure they helped these fintech startups to find out the possible investment opportunities. And you would agree that many such such platforms are available online, where if a startup if group of some people have a startup idea, they can go and pitch their idea to many people, and thus generate their seed funding. And also to this effect, yes, the fintech companies definitely help. There were a lot of other fintech startups who also did do something very elementary but important stuff, which is not only helping MSMEs with loan, but help MSME filing of their tax returns and the other compliance too. Fintech definitely helped. These were some core areas where I believe fintech helped. But what else is required probably from the fintech companies? There are some fintech startups who are trying to identify the key metrics to monitor the performance of businesses and their directions. Now, if these organizations help these and make their financial statements more credible for the investor comfort, I'm sure in days to come, these probably companies would reach out to the larger set of audience, because as of now, a lot of investors do not have the the comfort to go with these people, because they are to an extent inorganized. I think fintech companies, rather than merely lending and doing some tertiary stuff, what I expect, or what probably SMEs, that they assist the business owners through combination of tech and finance, probably less about the financial matters and the compliance, and spend more time about innovating in their own businesses. So I really believe that if fintech organizations go beyond merely the funding and the stuff like capital assistance, if they can extend their offerings to all these areas as well, probably a lot of Indians, because I say we in saving oriented economies, I think we need more than just finance when it comes to the expectations of MSMEs. And I would Bharat, in order to conclude whatever I'm saying, I would say that during this pandemic period, fintech has definitely played a pivotal role. However, what I see it as, they have just currently touched the tip of the iceberg. The number of MSMEs in India is so big, and their problems are so diverse, that probably the fintech organizations and try to bring about some more innovative things, so that our MSMEs can probably help our economy get propelled towards that 5 trillion economy, which our respected Prime Minister is trying to do. And I'm sure the situation must not be very different in a lot of other countries, though I'm not too aware of. But whatever little awareness I have of the different economies, I believe yes, these happens to be the common issues. I think that is what the fintech organizations need to look at in terms of the support wave 2.0 that now we can expect post pandemic. If they are able to do this, then I'm sure we are in for a very strong, resilient recovery. Thank you so much, Bharat. It was an absolute pleasure being part of this this August gathering. And as you said, if there are any questions, I'm very much here to take them towards the end of it. Over to you, Dr. Bharat. Thanks a ton.
Thank you. Thank you, Amber. And as always, you bring up issues which are so relevant. And I think important point you made was the benefit scheme has actually reached to 2.7 million people. And when we talk about a 70 million, community, 2.7 million is just the tip of the iceberg. So a lot of work needs to be done. And I think the important thing which I understand from your perspective is that the fintech companies have actually been able to link with the MSMEs, and MSMEs have been able to see value in that. Of course, these are early days, and as we progress in our economy, I think a lot of these ideas that you have brought in would be implemented. So now I invite our next speaker, Vini Maheshwari. Vinit, we have been talking about, Vinit has been working with me for, I don't know, it's lost in number of years that we have been together, probably 40 years. I know Vinit, and he has been one of the key persons in a lot of organizations, large scale organizations, which has dealt with MSMEs. And now he's on the other side of the table, acting as virtual CFO of several MSMEs and bringing in, so he can actually bring in the perspective from both the sides, how MSMEs are looked at from the larger organizations, and from inside how MSMEs look at the business. So over to you, Vinit, for your comments.
Thank you, Dr. Bharat. And I also thank WTO for giving us this opportunity. Sometimes it is really a blessing to be the last speaker, because most of your comments have been already covered by the earliest eminent speakers. So I would really thank Jay Prakash ji, Nilesh ji, and Amber ji on throwing lights on what is how the economy can be sustainable, how the government is taking initiatives, and what are the real pains that MSME have been facing. So this is very clear that around the world, the small business have been hit extremely hard due to this COVID-19. But if you see what is the primary reason, which Amber has already covered, is lack of demand, reduced supply chain, and the most important thing is worsening finance condition. Now the world needs SMEs to thrive. Out of 10, every 7 jobs are coming from SMEs. So they are one of the most important segments or industry for any economy. So even when we talk about impact of COVID, even before COVID, if you see in India, not almost 93% of SMEs were not having access to proper financing channels. And this gap is expected to widen significantly due to this COVID impact. Now, there have been financing in India since ages. So, but the traditional source of funding has always been on high asset businesses. So they always look for collateral. So banks have always tried to be more defensive and keep their portfolio clean. So that is where the SMEs lag, because India is a service sector economy, and we have a lot of service SMEs coming up who are actually asset light in nature. So we boil down to the next option is the Fintech Lenders. So which is what they already said, that they should act as a conduit for the main financing. So they are not a competition to banks, because both of them have a different segment. But yes, Fintech has really come up very nice with, they're offering loans which are having more transparency, more economical, and very fast. So now SMEs can now only share their data to these exchanges and for access to credit to help them grow. How do fintechs gain? So fintechs will use the advanced analytical platforms and artificial intelligence to access transactional and alternative data, and getting better understanding of these SMEs, which helps them have a better understanding of the credit worthiness, and they can issue the loans in less than 24 hours now. So fintech has come a long way in automating and transforming, but there's a long way to go also. Because with COVID-19, if you see, the need of increased digitization transformation is there across everyone. And that pushes even the fintech companies to innovate and create more customer-friendly things. On the same part, government is also taking several initiatives, which already Nilesh has covered from MSME perspective. But one of the biggest game changer is UPI, Unified Payment Interface. This is the most convenient method with zero charges, and that is why the companies are now, or business organizations are getting integrated with UPI payment options. So this helps in quick payments, social distancing, so-called social distancing. So the cash is actually going out of the world now. But what I also see is, though fintech is playing extremely well role, but we should not forget that the current situations or the uncertainties have impacted all the businesses, including fintech. So they are not immune to the impact of this lockdown and all those things. Yes, there is a whole lot of hopes coming up, and I know we are running short of time. So and most of the points have been already covered by other eminent speakers. So I'll just say that the next decade is a decade of strong fintechs strengthening weak businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vineet. And it's pleasure listening to you about the technical aspects of fintech and say how fintech can actually play a role. I have a question that has come up, and Amber, this is for you. This is that the WTO, the question says that the WTO must recommend that member countries facilitate the communication of current offers and to organize training sessions in these startups on various aspects of relevant to WTO and say path and create a path of information for all startups. So this is Youssef from Togo who has asked this question. Maybe Amber, if you would like to speak more about what you see as the role of WTO in or role of say even trade associations like us in making these schemes and making these facilities and making this knowledge more importantly shared. Maybe Amber, you can start, and maybe JP, if you would like to add to that. So I look forward for both of you. I think short of time, so you can just say quickly respond to that.
Doctor, a quick remark from my side would be, yes, I 100% appreciate. We should make sure that how do we translate, or we make sure this knowledge percolates down to the remotest possible corner where beneficiaries are located. We might have to them, and what could they be needs to be in and decided. It is not something that comes to me offhand. But yes, one thing is for sure, the need of this is what I believe, that there is a need of this, and if we are able to somehow reach out to the remotest possible corner of the beneficiaries, it would be more sensible for us. How needs to be seen. He has to add something to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but thanks for that. And I would go back to my original opening remarks that I made, and it's a very fair point raised by one of the participants. If we consider the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is the whole world being one place, and Mother Nature giving bounty which is unequal or distributed unequally, sharing of experiences is surely one of those bounties, and there is no reason why that should not happen. And the WTO is a great forum through which such exchanges could happen. So, going back to what on an ontological or epistemological level one would want to examine, it's a very fair statement and should indeed be promoted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, JP. So we are just in about 5 minutes. We are about to close our session. So before we go into the closing, just I would like to have our say speakers a last say 2-minute say slot, just to add what you feel. Where do we actually, for MSMEs, the fintech, and where does this whole thing go in the next 1 year? Maybe in the next public forum we can come back and discuss what has happened over the years. But say, where do you see in the next year fintech going? Maybe I'll start with JP.
Thanks, Bharat. Yes, future grazing is something which all of us love to. I surely see, unfortunately, though not my liking, a lot of froth developing in the fintech, where fintechs would try to assume the role of bankers rather than cooperating with them. They'll be competing. It will create a lot of ripples. We have seen this example working in microfinance context too, and this is where regulators will need to be very, very careful. There will be a huge interplay or conflict between regulators and the business, where regulators will be blamed for being slow, will be blamed for being static. And it's going to play out as a big conflict in a discussion forum. And I'm very keen to participate and there be in alignment with the regulator rather than the business, that fintech should get into actual lending or actual financial institution services. That's how I view it. Next 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. Amber.
Dr. Bharat, how do I see it? As I would only want one thing from these fintech organizations is to, at this point in time, go towards, building awareness, then building the bottom lines. In order to build stronger bottom lines, they definitely need to, go beyond the current state of geography they are addressing to. So I really believe that, the offerings would get easier, more simplified because of the amount of beneficiaries that we have in the country. I expect the fintech version 2.0 to be more friendly and to be more agile in terms of reaching out to the, final ultimate beneficiaries. I believe that the fintech strategizers are going to definitely take into account both.
Thank you, Amber. Maybe I can move to Vineet.
Yeah, so what I see is fintech is an industry where you can see a lot of funding coming to the country in the fintech industry, because the investor may not be interested in directly putting money in SMEs. So this is a very good opportunity for them to invest in fintech, who in turn invest in SMEs. So I see a lot of growth for fintech companies in India.
Thank you, Vineet. And finally, Mr. Trivedi, if you can add on, how does the government see use of fintech and technology in making MSMEs more, say, more resilient?
Government is already on the path of this to help fintech companies. But main problem is the awareness problem of MSME, including government department officers, bank officials, industry associations, because many persons don't know about these schemes, whether they are belong to association, academic institution, banks officials, and sometimes government officers also don't know about what changes. So awareness is at every step is must for every one of us to facilitate MSMEs.
Thank you, Trivedi ji. So I think just to conclude, say I would like to add a few points which I have picked up from my colleagues. One, definitely that fintech is here to stay. Fintech is something which would actually bring in more and more resilience to MSMEs, as JB said. If we are able to bring down the credit spread and make lending more, say, make lending more say cheaper, then the huge amount of benefit that would actually accrue can be shared by MSMEs and the financial institutions. So I think that is one thing that we look forward really towards, bringing down that credit spread and making MSMEs more resilient through access to cheaper finance without actually compromising on the risk aspect of it. Going forward, I think phenomenal work has been done by the government of India in making the access to services and access to regulations online. A number of portals have been have been launched, and these portals have helped the MSMEs to access these services without much of hassle, bringing down a lot of effort, because MSMEs typically the CFO, the CEO, and the CLO. Everybody is one the same thing. He sometimes has to be the office boy as well. That's how MSMEs are. And for them to actually have these access to services online is something which is phenomenal with the government of India. But we have to really work as an industry association. I believe that we have to work a lot on that. On making it making the awareness there. Amber, I think you spoke about all the perspective of MSMEs, and I think even a small vendor who has a very high margin, if we are able to bring down the services and bring down the benefits of fintech to somebody like him, that would be the game changer. And finally, Vineet, I think we realize that there is a lot of scope for the fintech companies to grow, expand in India. And with the phenomenal number of MSMEs, I think there's a huge market, and we would see this thing growing forward. So I think with all that, I think it's a very encouraging session. It gives a lot of experiences about fintech in India, and I think this can be replicated across the world. And as an industry association, we commit that we would be helping anybody who wants to use the Indian experience, and we'll be very happy to share our understanding. With that, I think we are close to the session. So we close the session here. And I thank all my panelists for their support, for their experience and experience sharing, and for their time. Thank you. And thank you, WTO, for giving Indo Global SME Chamber this opportunity to bring out issues